Hello, Sally Chechi. So nice to talk to you and do the pet talks with you. One of the most
Yeah,
inspiring people from Kerala, and of course in India, for all the animal welfare work that you do. So, would you like to introduce yourself and tell about all the work that you do and how you inspire people to do more?
Hi, Shruti. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I'm Sally, and I work as the outreach coordinator for Humane Society International India. I'm the Kerala outreach coordinator. So I work basically in Kerala, all over Kerala, and the different districts. And I'm on the farm animal protection team. So basically, I do outreach. I go to schools, colleges, and different institutions and talk to people about farm animals and about how people can make a difference in the lives of farm animals.
So I remember all the work you were on field when the Kerala floods happened, and you yourself were going to rescue a lot of animals. And I remember all that time when we from Bangalore we could not come, or anybody from any other place could not come to Kerala, but we were just coordinating from Bangalore for all the material, and you were literally going and rescuing animals. So how do you manage all this? Like, how do you manage with a small kid and family?
It was difficult, but luckily for me, I'm part of this wonderful NGO that gives so awesome support. So when the 2018 floods happened in Kerala, the first flood, we were very lucky because our we had a ABC program. HSI was doing an ABC program with the state government, and we were stationed at Malappuram. We were stationed at Tirur, Malappuram. So the day the floods started, we were actually at the site where it was happening. We were at the red zone, and so it was much easier for us. Like our team, we were an 8-member team. There was a veterinary doctor, Dr. Shivendra, and we were all there. Like the team was there at site. So we just needed like permission from the state government, which they gave us. They wanted the collector called us for an urgent meeting, and they requested that HSI team be a part of the animal rescues that are happening, and to assist the animal husbandry department of Malappuram. So then our team went into action. We started basically at Nilambur. So that was like, I'm sure that you've seen the videos and all. It was really like it was like a movie. It was like a disaster movie that was happening, because like everybody was running away from scene. People were trying to go away from there, and we were actually going into the scene where the landslides were happening, where the floods were happening, and we did manage to save a lot of animals.
Yeah.
And the first flood was like a more like a learning experience, not just for us but for the government, for the public, for everybody, because it was like such a, it happened very suddenly. It was not expected. And what happened in Kerala was, that here most people keep pets or whatever locked up inside cages. So the concept of this companion animal is very less here, and most of the dogs are kept just as watchdogs or guard dogs inside house, like in cages. So what happened when the flood occurred was, people all when they were asked to evacuate from their homes, they just took whatever they wanted or needed, like what they felt was important, and they just left the dogs or the cats or whatever inside the cages. They were not untied or let free. The same thing happened with a lot of farm animals as well, the cows, goats, because people were thinking that when they come back, they wanted their animals there. They didn't want the animals to wander off, because like for farm animals, it's considered as a source of livelihood here.
Yeah.
So they didn't give them a chance to save themselves. So that's what happened during the first flood. And there was not much messaging also, because from the government side, to let the animals loose and all that. So there were a lot of animal casualties in the first flood. There were a lot of like places where there was just bodies. Like when we were going, we saw a lot of death in front of us during the first flood. But we did, and after Malappuram, then we got more backup. More people from HSI came into Kerala, and we had boats and all that. We had these inflatable boats and more equipment. And then we moved to other parts of Kerala. We actually, I think we covered all of Kerala. We came to Thrissur, then we went to Alapi. We even reached Pathanamthitta, Rani, where Rani was like a war zone. Like the water had come down by the time we reached Rani, and like it was just sludge and dirt everywhere. Like when we were walking, we had these gumboots on, and like our legs used to, like up to our knees, it was like sludge. We were walking through sludge, and then it was more than rescues, it was feeding activities that we did in Rani and Alapi and all that. We were feeding the starving animals. So we did a lot of work for 2018, and that in turn the state government was very impressed by how we coordinated and how we worked. So like 2019 floods was more like it was expected. Everybody knew because it happened in 2008. There was much more planning that happened.
Yeah.
And when the floods started, like there was a lot of messaging coming out from animal welfare groups as well as the state government, asking people like when you run away from your home, at least untie your animals. And there was a lot of proper messaging that came out.
Right.
And I feel that the 2019 floods itself was not as strong as the 18 one, because the 18 floods affected entire Kerala,
Right.
while the 2019 one was only concentrated to Wayanad and Malappuram. Like
Right.
Nilambur side was hit very badly, and Wayanad. So I was working in. So unfortunately for me, the previous team that worked, that program got over, and they went to Dindigal near Kodaikanal. So like I was again, it was just me. So I couldn't do a lot as much rescues or awesome work like it was done the previous year, but we coordinated a lot. We coordinated with different NGOs working in all over Kerala. We helped a lot of people in networking, getting like dog food, cat food, cattle feed, goat feed, like around 5,000 like kg of dog food and cat food was distributed. So it was like really huge.
No,
So,
2018.
but having, yeah, tell me.
I was saying 2018 Kerala floods is an unforgettable time for, I mean,
Yeah.
because for us staying in Bangalore, just looking at the news was very scary. And at one point nobody was even allowed to come to Kerala, right? Because things were getting
Yeah,
really
so
bad.
that's what happened. So when it was very bad, it was just a few of us here.
Yeah.
Later on, a lot of groups actually did start coming in. But
Yeah.
by the time that they started coming in, there was like very less work for them to do. Like
Yeah.
almost the major part of the rescue work and all was over, and it was just feeding and then like transporting of animals and all that. But like we were there when it started, so because of that, we had the advantage of doing a lot more rescues and everything.
Yeah, that's very, very inspiring. And I see that you're doing a lot of work during COVID 19 as well. And one of the things I really admire about you, which I want you to share with everybody, is how do you inspire your little son also to be so sensitive towards animals. I see him doing a lot of videos and short films about awareness of animals. And I also want to ask you, is this like a family background? What I mean, has your family been into animal welfare, or has it started with you?
uh, Actually, like I grew up in a household that was very supportive.
Hmm.
And yeah, my dad, okay, I have cats coming up. He's run off. So I've had animals all throughout my life. I don't remember a time of my life when I've not had animals at home. So actually, I do these in Instagram account. I have these ask me anything. I do it a lot.
Uh-huh.
And 2 days back, there was somebody who asked me the question that why do animal activists always have dogs and cats at home? Why don't they have farm animals as pets? So I replied to that question saying that like all my life, actually, like it's just recently that I've had dogs and cats as pets. Like
Okay.
it's only dogs and cats as pets, because like all throughout my life, we've had a whole lot of farm animals. Like the first memory I have of something that is like a welfare activity is when I was a very small kid, and me, my dad, and my mom, we used to be in Tamil Nadu, in the
Mm-hmm.
Nilgiris near Ooty.
Mm-hmm.
So we were coming back from somewhere. I was so small, and we had an ambassador car.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were coming back, my dad, he suddenly stopped the car next to one. It was like a small temple, and he stopped the car. So then, and then I'm seeing my dad argue with somebody. He's like big argument and something, and I'm sitting in the back of the car, and suddenly my dad opens the back of the car, and two goats are pushed inside the car. Like I'm sitting and I'm having two goats suddenly right next to me. So I didn't know what was happening, and then my dad took the car and we came back home. And then later I came to know actually those goats were about to be sacrificed there. It was like some some ritual or something was going on, and somebody had said that they would sacrifice two goats for something to happen good in their family. So my dad had stopped the car, and he'd actually taken both those goats and brought them home.
Okay.
So those goats lived in Elsa and Mammootty. Those were their names. My dad was a big Mamuka fan.
Okay.
So the male goat was Mammootty and the female was Elsa. And they lived their entire lives like they were there. Like I remember like those were my like initial memories like as a kid. And then we also had a lot of hens. Like there was a rooster called Joe McCleskey. His name was Joe McCleskey, and that was a rooster, and there were like many hens. So we never, it was never like a only dog cat family,
Right.
like
Right.
the usual. So we've had a lot of farm animals, and also like my favorite animal in the entire world is a pig. Like I love pigs.
It's okay.
So my dream is to like adopt a pig from a slaughterhouse and maybe have a pig as a pet. So yeah, it's been coming back to your question. I've wandered around a lot.
No,
So
it's very.
I've
It
had this animal thing in the family for a long time.
right. No, I was saying it's
So
very good
like
that you're
and even
talking.
my son
Sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
yeah,
No,
it
I
is.
said
And like when the time when my son was born, I think we are interrupting each other. My network is a little bad,
no
so
problem.
it gets there's a bit of delay. So
Sure.
actually when my son was born, like we had a lot of I used to bring like home a lot of dogs with skin issues,
Okay.
dogs that had mange.
Okay.
So when he was there was a lot of skin issue dogs at home, and people used to say like these dogs are shedding skin and body parts, and you have like a newborn baby lying next to this dog that is having a disease, and that's definitely going to make him get some disease. And used to face a lot of such questions from people, but like you said, having a very supportive family definitely helps. And like he has grown with animals, so definitely that has to come in him. And he's very helpful. Like it's always so much encouraging when a child asks for something rather than us adults asking for something.
Yeah.
So when I go to schools also, if he is free, it's very helpful if I take him along with me. Like, and when a kid can do it, why can't an adult do it? Like if a kid can understand that an animal feels pain, there is like an animal is a living a being and not a living thing. It's not like a thing. So that is a very important concept that I try uh, like to make children understand when I go to schools, that there is a difference between a pen and a chicken. A pen is a thing, and a chicken is a living being.
Being here.
And we see that mostly around us, a lot of people consider, like especially farm animals. That is why I empathize with farm animals much more than like a regular cat or dog, because farm animals are basically reared by people just for the source of what they give to us, like for their flesh, for their skin, for milk, for eggs. Like they're considered as commodities. They are like manufactured like on a like a factory. That's why they're called factory farms,
Right.
where these farm animals live. So they're like manufactured in factory farms, and until the moment that they die, like their entire life is suffering. actually I feel that the moment that they die is a release from the suffering that they go through their entire lives. So
Right.
the way the chickens are transported in those battery cages, and we have all become so like accustomed to seeing this happen in front of us that we never even take it as a cruelty.
Hmm.
Like just imagine that a neutral person, like not somebody into animal welfare, a neutral person is going on the street in his vehicle, and he suddenly sees like maybe a dog lying on the street. Maybe the dog is sick or wounded. So a dog gets attention of people. Like people are like, okay, there is a dog lying there, and that person might give a call to somebody saying that I saw a dog, can somebody help? Because people feel that they should do something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if a person is traveling and if he sees a vehicle carrying like chickens to be slaughtered, and they're kept in those horrid cages, and half of them are already dead, and like there is so much like suffering and pain right in front of them, but you just look at it and then you turn aside. It's like it doesn't affect you because it keeps, we are conditioned, it
Hmm.
conditions us. Like from the moment that we are born, we are conditioned that like this is what they are for.
Right.
And even in schools and colleges you see that textbooks teach children uh, like cow gives us milk, hen gives us eggs. So as a child I always used to argue with, even with my teachers, I used to ask them like, uh, cow gives us milk, cow gives milk to its baby, and aren't we actually stealing the milk? And the hen gives us eggs. Hen is not coming and saying like, here I've laid an egg, here come take it. So it's all like children are made, like we are conditioned from a small age to know that these animals are there and whatever they are producing is for us.
Right.
So it is like it's like the entire system of education and how we are the different, the norms of the society and everything, people around us, this is what we are taught in life. And every child is growing up with that feeling that yeah, if a hen is there, the hen is laying eggs for us, the cow is giving milk for us, so the cow dies to give us its flesh, or the hen has to be killed for us to eat its flesh. So
Hmm.
there are, it's like, and people fail to understand that we have the ability to make choices.
Yeah.
Like we are intelligent. I have a lot of people asking me uh, like uh, like how can you force somebody not to do something? It's not like you're forcing somebody not to go kill a chicken or something. It's like when you have a choice for doing something which is less cruel or which involves less pain, like we as human beings are so much evolved and intelligent to make a better choice. So
Right.
why not make the better choice than go for, and like we Humane Society International basically is an NGO that actually we are very different from other NGOs because like we don't, it's not something that we force upon people. We always give people the option. Like we have a campaign called Meatless Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very important campaign which I feel in, especially in a place like Kerala, which is around 99% non-vegetarian state. So it's not like you go to a school and you just suddenly you go and like accuse everybody who's eating non-veg that you are part of something very cruel, you're doing wrong. That doesn't happen, it doesn't work.
Right.
So what we do is we have a system, a campaign called Meatless Monday, where we go to schools and colleges and we give them an option of going plant-based one day of the week,
Hmm.
which is very much possible for people. Even somebody who eats non-veg is able to not like stop doing that for one day of the week, and that makes such a big difference. Like when a whole lot of people do like stop, and it gives people the option that okay, so I am able to do this, so it's not too bad, and maybe I can do that for a few more days.
Right.
So that is the Meatless Monday campaign, and like that is how we actually approach people and children here. It's not like we give them, there are the 3 R's, like we ask them like how you have to reduce, how you have to reduce the intake. That is the most important part, I feel, because if you start, that itself is a victory.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a hardcore non-vegetarian and ask them like if you can at least reduce your intake of meat, there itself we have a victory. And then like the replacement and all comes, but the reduction part is what is most
Right.
important.
Right. So, I mean, I like what you say because it's not about you know, we all come from different cultural backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, right? And India as a country is so divided across various societies. So I think it makes a big difference in creating an awareness versus actually judging people for the choices, right? And which is why the
Yes, and that is a very wrong thing that people, I feel that when you are like, when you start judging people and when you start accusing them, they automatically go into a shell. They're like, this person is being bad to me and I will continue doing what? They go into a defensive. They
yeah,
start defending themselves. They start defending and say, no, I will do this. Who are you to stop me attitude? So
right,
that is not, I feel, the right way to approach this particular thing, because it's there are a lot of these cultural things, like how they've grown up in their family, and it's not easy. I know it's not easy, because for somebody who's been eating milk, who's been drinking milk all their life, or eating meat, suddenly you go and tell them that it's wrong and you can't do it anymore, they definitely go into the defensive. But then you show them like what is the actual situation that is happening. So these are the alternatives that you can actually choose, and like you can try doing this. Why don't you just try it for a day maybe and see how it goes? So then actually you see a difference that is happening.
right,
So that is how like you actually make a difference. And I keep telling this to like I think in the recent times there are a lot of new activists coming up in Kerala, which is good, of course, because there are a lot of people, new groups coming up. But then the problem is like when people start, like there is a lot of hardcore activism, a lot of activism comes up. And when you become like a hardcore activist, the thing that happens, it puts people away.
yeah,
It it makes people not want to even talk to, or because like you keep asking very tough things and you keep accusing, and it makes you very angry.
hmm,
Like I know the kind of anger that I had initially when like working in Kerala, like maybe going back maybe like 6 7 years back. Like I used to be very angry because people are very bad to dogs. People are killing dogs in Kerala. Then I used to hate Kerala so much. I used to be very angry with Kerala. I used to feel like every other state is better and like Kerala is. You remember, right? There were a lot of campaigns going on about Kerala and all that. But then what? Like you start to realize actually with your experience that it's like situation. There are bad things happening all over the world. It's not just Kerala. And actually like it's just like how you react to it, and how the way, the awareness that you create. And there are a lot of new people in Kerala. What they do is like they might see like 3 puppies on the road. They immediately pick up those puppies. They put up a lot of posts saying that like we've rescued 3 puppies, get them adopted, please adopt the puppies. So I asked those people, like, have you even looked around to see if the mother dog is there? Are there other siblings of those puppies around? And like they are living free like happy lives on the street. Maybe they might get run over 3 days later, but until then they are living free lives.
yeah,
They are free, they are with their mom, and that is their life. And these people put them up for adoption, and somebody comes, sees a cute puppy, and they just take it. And most of these dogs adopted in Kerala go into cages.
hmm,
So what I feel, what is more important is changing the attitude of the people and make the concept of companion animal more, before like you go on doing all these like random 100 200 adoptions. And when groups put up posts in Facebook saying like we had an adoption event and 80 puppies got adopted, it scares me. Seriously, it scares the hell out of me, thinking that, oh my god, so 80 adoption means 80 families have come forward. Are these 80 families genuine? How well will they look after this puppy that they've adopted? Is the puppy going straight from its mom on the road to a house inside a cage, where it's going to cry till it like gets fed up of crying? And like that is what happens in most cases. So I would rather be happy to know that like 100 puppies were put for adoption, maybe only 5 got adopted, but the 5 went to loving homes.
yeah. I mean,
So it's not about, it's always, it's, yeah, tell me, Sruti.
no, so I was saying that I agree because it's not about I mean, in India particularly, it's practically not possible that every native dog, every stray dog, or a stray animal gets a home, right? Because there are so many stray animals. For us, it's about how, as people, how do we make our surroundings more feasible for animals to live
Safer.
peacefully? It's okay if the dogs are outside your house, but at least give them food, water, take care of them, get them vaccinated to an extent possible. So every resident, if we look at least 2-3 people in one, lane taking care of animals in their lane, we are still making it a much safer and better place for them to live rather than lock them up at homes or force them to be indoors. You know, particularly the native dogs, because they are free to be outside. It's not like unfortunately, the breed dogs are not tuned to be outside, but at least the ones which take birth on streets with their mothers might have a better life on streets than at home.
Because I've seen, like, even I can't cross a road properly like a dog on the street does. I'm so scared of crossing roads.
Yeah.
Like, I might stand there for like half an hour looking left and right and still not have the courage to go. And then I see like an indie running past so nicely. I'm like, oh my God, like he or she crosses the road better than me. So they are like so well adapted. They've lived their life on the street, and the mother dog teaches the puppies how to survive. And what I feel as responsible people that we should do is make the surroundings safer for them.
Yeah.
Like, give talk to the people, talk, like maybe show them like you can touch these dogs, they are friendly, you just give them food or water, and take away the fear that people have. I feel that in Kerala, basically this hatred for dogs, for street dogs, is because of the fear that people have.
Yeah.
So while we were having the ABC program, and the ABC program in Kerala was going on, the best part of the program was I used to sit at the back of the vehicle where like our catching vehicle used to go catching. I used to sit in the back with the dogs that were caught. So like, for example, if we caught like 8 dogs that day, so like when each dog is caught, I open the door and the dog comes to me. It's like it's a modified vehicle. It's a modified vehicle which has a big open space at the back, so the dogs come. So whenever our vehicle used to stop, and imagine we were working in Malappuram. Malappuram is one of the districts in Kerala that was like totally anti-dog. The people there hated dogs. So
Right.
every time our vehicle used to stop somewhere and the boys used to go out catching, people used to come and crowd around our vehicle. Like, we'll have around minimum 50 people at a time crowding around our vehicle. And they
Right.
used to come inside and see, and they're seeing a girl sitting with these stray dogs. And they're like, are these pet dogs? I'm like, no, we caught them just now. Then they'll ask, so you are sitting with them, they won't come bite you? I'm like, then I'll just like show them like I'm touching one dog. I'm like, no, they're fine. They're like, from where did you catch? I'll say, we caught them right outside. These are dogs living in your area. And people are like, so they're not killing her, they're not tearing her apart. And it surprised people. So we were just like, it was every single day was awareness. Like, we were spreading awareness that these are not beings that you have to be terrified of. They are just scared of you. If you are fine with them, they are absolutely okay with you too.
Yeah.
So, and then like, it made release so much easier. When we used to go to release the dogs after surgery, after the third day when we went out to release, we used to pick each dog from the vehicle, put them out, and then we had people clapping and everything, and people were like, yay, these dogs are back. So, and that was like such an achievement for us, because most ABC programs which happen around, I don't know whether around India or especially in Kerala, they have this complaint like, when people go to release back the dogs, the public make issues.
Yeah.
That is because that is how they see the dogs being released. The dogs are not even touched. They're caught, thrown into the vehicles. After surgery, the dogs are like so scared inside the vehicle. They come and like, they take them with those wire loops, throw them outside. So there is absolutely no human dog interaction. The public seeing it, see the dogs going in aggressive, coming out aggressive, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So we used to do it in such a way that we showed people that these dogs are friendly. These are friendly dogs coming back. These are sterilized. These are vaccinated. These dogs will not spread rabies. And that is what makes a difference. So I always feel that basically any change you want in animal welfare, it's it's the mindset has to change. You have to make a change in the public mindset. That is the only way that a difference will come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking your time out Sally Chechi, and just for the viewers to
And
know,
one more thing I have to say. One more thing that I have to say before we stop regarding COVID-19 and animals. Uh, Animals do not, companion animals such as dogs, cats, and all that, do not spread the virus to humans. So please do not use that as an excuse to abandon the dog that you have at home. Maintain cleanliness, always keep yourself clean, wash your hands and everything, but do not be scared that your furry buddies will spread the virus to you, and do not abandon them for this reason. And for any information that you want regarding this, please only like go to valid sources. You can always refer to the HSI website or the HSI social handles, Instagram, Facebook. We keep putting out all the latest information, so only trust the valid sources.
Absolutely. Very important for people to be aware of this. And at any point, anybody has any doubts or questions, write to us, ask us so that we can explain, create more understanding of how you should take care of your pets at this point, right? But do not abandon. Let us hope that with all our efforts, more people are sensitive to it and, you know, take the necessary steps to make sure that the animals are also safe, right? Because they are dependent on us. Thank you so
Shruti.
much, Chechi. Just for the viewers to know, Chechi in Malayalam language means sister. And I'm very fond of Sally Chechi. And I like calling her Chechi because she just gives me that sister feeling, and, for all the work that she does. So, and I'm also a part Malayali, so I just relate more to her and call her Chechi. It just makes me feel more affectionate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, and keep inspiring all of us.
Thank you, Shruti, for having such a show that actually inspires people. And it's very important, not just now during COVID or something. It's important always that people get to hear about this. And like I was telling you, spreading awareness is the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.